Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It feels good to be here again, guys. It does. It feels good to be here again. So this morning, guys, I just want to give you guys, I don't want to be the harbinger of doom, but the way, what I'm looking at the United Kingdom right now, I'm looking at the West. I've just been on the phone to my friend who's got another friend who lives in Canada. And he was saying, like, things in Canada are absolutely unbearable. It's unbearable to live in Canada. There are people leaving Canada. There are people wanting to get out of the United Kingdom. There's nowhere else to go, guys. There is nowhere else to go. Ultimately, what I believe is going to happen is we're going to have the fall of Western civilization, and I'm going to talk about what comes next. But I don't think anything good is coming. And when I do these videos, when I talk about things that are going to happen in the future, it seems like folly. It seems like it seems like folly. Sarah sent me a news article. I can't remember who it was from. I think it was, I can't remember. I can't remember. It might have been the Telegraph. I don't know. But it was an article posted 2 days ago. I think it was from the Telegraph. I've just done a video on TikTok about it. And it says, I think it says something like, the Telegraph can reveal, or I don't know, the Daily Mail or whatever. It's on the screenshot. The Telegraph or whoever reveals Keir Starmer's links to the KGB. And I was like, wow. I was talking about this a year ago. I did a long video on this a year ago. So the stuff that I was talking about a year ago, mainstream media are jumping on it now. So the stuff I'm talking about now is going to happen, guys, and I don't want to be like a doom merchant, but just as a concerned citizen here who's watched the world unravel thread by thread, we can all feel it, right? Like, you can feel it. It's not just me, and I know it's you as well. And I know it's the people in France. I know it's the people in Canada, because I've spoken to these people, and it's certainly the people in Ukraine. The world is unraveling thread by thread. Everybody can feel it, guys. It's like the shifting sands between our toes, underneath our feet, cracks the foundations, of our once unshakable society. And today, I just want to talk, because this is the truth, guys. All right, and it's a heavy burden. It's a heavy burden to understand, but it's also, I guess it's also empowering when you understand what's coming. When you understand the inevitable that's coming. So I believe the fall is now inevitable. The fall of Western society. The decline of our Western way of life, the erosion of our sovereignty, our culture, our security. It's no longer a distant storm on the horizon. When people are saying, oh, look, guys, I grew up in Rotherham. I grew up in Rotherham in the 90s. And even then it was bad. It was bad in Rotherham in the 90s. What are we on, like 35 years later? It's a lot. Like, you can imagine how bad things are now. You can't go back. It's virtually impossible. It's here now. This is not just, it's pounding at the door. It's pounding at the door. And in some cases, it's actually coming to people's houses. The forces that are driving this are too vast. They're too intertwined. For example, we have huge, let's just say Somalian communities, because we do. We have huge Somalian communities in the United Kingdom. Now, in the United States, there's the United States are, they won't, look, guys, and I'm not giving judgment on this. I'm just saying this is what's happening in the United States, in Minnesota. So in Minnesota, the United States are trying to get rid of, a lot of Somalians. How do you get rid of those, like, Somalians in Minnesota that have been born in the United States? It's virtually impossible. Yes, of course you can. You can tell people that they're being deported. You can say we're not letting any more people in, without doing things that are very difficult that are going to be very difficult to consciously accept. And people just won't accept these. People will accept the fall. People would rather accept the fall than the cure. Now, in the United Kingdom, for example, if we had a large Somalian community, and places like Cardiff, I could say there are, how would we remove that large? And I'm talking millions, guys. I'm talking millions of people. It's just not going to happen. And I don't mean to be defeatist. And it's, look, guys, I can sit here and I can say, we must fight. Yeah, that's all well and good. It's not going to happen. You're going to get sent to jail. I don't want to get sent to jail. And I'm pretty sure that you don't want to get sent to jail. But you're trying to fight against people that understand jail is a better way of life than sending them home. You guys see where I'm going with that? It's crazy, guys. It's crazy. So let me start with the tide that's washing all over. Yeah, tide. The tide of mass migration from the third world into our Western nations. Now, don't misunderstand me. This isn't about blaming the desperate people fleeing, that are fleeing war and oppression. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the sheer scale. Now let's just go backwards slightly, all right? Let's just say that everybody coming to the United Kingdom, they are fleeing persecution, they're fleeing war, they are fleeing something that they don't like. The sheer numbers, guys, the sheer numbers are going to destroy Western civilization. Through no malice, just the sheer numbers will destroy Western civilization. Then if you start to add in malice, crime, culture, the saturation point's already been reached. The unmanaged chaos that's overwhelming our system, so certainly here in the United Kingdom, we've seen our borders strained to absolute breaking point. Cities transformed that feels like overnight, although it's been a slow burner. Although, look, guys, you've heard the phrase, right? What do they say? They say it can take 20 years to become an overnight success. Well, it's taken like 30 years for this to happen. Communities that once thrived on shared values now grapple with integration challenges that our leaders seem unwilling or unable to address. I think that's a fair comment, guys. I think that's a fair comment. I saw an article out today from, I'll share it with you guys in a second. I saw an article out today. People are being granted asylum without ever having a face-to-face interview. Now, we used to thrive on shared communities, shared values. I've given you guys, myself, when I was growing up, we used to go to the cricket field in the summer. And that to me is beautiful. That to me is how we grew up as kids. You would, summer, you would go up to the cricket field, you watch some random people play cricket. There would be like a summer fete. That's how I grew up. Those days are gone, ladies and gentlemen. Those days are gone. Now we're grappling with integration and trying to just trying to survive, basically. Resources are stretched thin. Housing crisis has been deepened. Social services are on the absolute brink. It's just not sustainable, guys. It's absolutely not sustainable. And across, and across Europe, from France's migrant camps, Germany's overburdened asylum centers, the story is the same. The story is literally the same all over the Western world. This influx, unchecked, and I would say it's accelerating, isn't just changing demographics. It's fracturing the social contract that holds us together. What do I mean by that? Don't rob me. Don't don't burn my substations down. I'll work and I will pay my taxes. And if everybody does the same, we can look out for those people who fall on hard times. That's kind of the social contract that's bound Western civilization together. Let's do things for the good of the community. Let's be greater than the sum of our own parts. But it doesn't feel like that anymore, guys. It doesn't feel like that. How can a nation endure when its identity is diluted beyond recognition? When the fabric of who we are is torn apart by numbers that we can't absorb. And I'm not. I don't want to focus, guys. I don't want to focus. I don't want to mention. I want to keep this as objective as possible because it's bad enough as it is. And then at the end, we'll talk about the bad things that are happening. You know, just the numbers alone, just the numbers of mass migration into the United Kingdom, into the West. It's the end. It's the end now. It's the end. It's gone. Whatever we thought we had, it's gone. Just by the numbers. Forget any crime, forget any stabby, rammy, you know, gangy, you know, forget or what is it now, spray, forget all that. Just the numbers. Western civilization's over. You know, we can't absorb these numbers. You know, this isn't happening, you know, but these things, they're not happening in, you know, in isolation. So we've got this mass migration all over the West. Now, if we look eastward to the war in Ukraine, you know, a brutal conflict that's not just a regional tragedy, but it's a global accelerant to our downfall. Russia's invasion has absolutely shattered post-war illusion, you know, the post-war illusion of peace. The peace dividend is over, guys. The peace dividend is over. And if you live in the United Kingdom, we've just spent 5.5 billion on an armored vehicle that's about to get scrapped. So we've spent 5.5 billion on nothing. So the peace dividend is well and truly over. This is driving up energy prices. That's crippling the economy, fueling inflation. You know, and these are the things that bite into every household. Because everything comes from energy, guys. Literally everything comes from energy. If there was an sustainable clean energy, there'd be no wars because there's no problems with energy. And everything can be. Energy is realistically, guys. Energy is the only currency. Energy is the only currency. If you've got energy, you've got currency. And you know, it really is hitting every household. You know, I mean. I'm terrified to leave the house. You know, I'm terrified to leave the lights on now in the house. You know, you used to just go out, and if you left the lights on, it wasn't the end of the world. You know, we have poured billions into arms, aid, depleting our own defenses. You know, depleting our own defenses while the specter of war looms. What if this draws in NATO fully? What if the nuclear shadows lengthen? This war really does expose the fragility. I'm talking about the war in Ukraine now. The fragility of our alliances, the dependence on foreign resources, and the harsh reality that Europe is once again a battlefield. It's once again a battlefield, guys. The refugees it generates add to the migration pressures, creating a vicious cycle that, you know, weakens us all from within. So NATO stocks, and they're being depleted right now because we're sending it all to Ukraine. So when the Russians push through Ukraine, they're going to look at the rest of Europe and think, right, these guys are depleted. Right, we either finish them off now or we let them grow to full strength. And we've got the powder keg in the Middle East. Yes, we have, guys. We've got the powder keg in the Middle East, you know, where tensions are simmering and erupt with terrifying regularity. From Israel's conflicts with Hamas and Hezbollah, you know, to the broader proxy wars involving Iran, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. Oil flows are disrupted, terrorism's exported, radical ideologies are now seeping on our streets. We've seen it before, guys. Attacks in London, Manchester, France, or Germany, you know, all across the continent. These aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of deeper instability that pulls resources, attention, and lives away from home. You know, and Western powers meddle or retreat. They form vacuums, and those vacuums are being filled with extremists who view our openness and kindness as weakness, you know. And some could argue it is. So how long before the next wave of unrest spills over, bringing more displacement, more division, more danger to our shores from the Middle East? Even across the Atlantic right now, there are more signs. America, our closest ally. Well, I think America is still our closest ally, and I think what we're seeing right now is just pomp and pageantry. America is poised off the coast of Venezuela with their naval might, ready to take down Maduro's regime or broader South American instability. But the flexing of muscle signals a world on the brink of wider confrontation. Resource wars over oil, ideological clashes, and potential proxy battles that could ignite a new Cold War era. If the Americans overextend, where does that leave the rest of the world? I don't think the Americans are going to be involved in the Ukraine conflict. I think they understand that they don't want to overextend like they did in Iraq, like they did in Afghanistan. Fighting two wars on two fronts, you half your resources and you double your enemies. You kind of don't want to do that. You want to double your resources and half your enemies. It's like command and conquer. It's like divide and conquer, but the opposite way around, the way that you don't want it to go. So, these aren't separate threads. These are all happening right now. Tell me I'm wrong, guys. They're all happening right now. We've got the trouble between Pakistan, India, Afghanistan. We've got the trouble between Thailand and Cambodia. We have got Japan and China squaring off to each other. If you live in the United Kingdom, the Ukraine conflict in Eastern Europe is going to be your main intent. This is going to drag everybody in, guys. It's going to drag everybody in. The Middle East, this fanning flames of extremism, and global imposturing, like off the coast of Venezuela. It's just a sign of things to come, and we are moving closer every day. Our governments, and when I look at the governments, there's two solutions. They're either in on it or they're too stupid to understand. I think for the British government, I think they are paid trolls. I do. I think the British government are paid trolls. I mean, look, guys, they're bringing Angela Rayner back. So it turns out, right? If you're in the United Kingdom now and you're looking at the government, you're allowed to do tax evasion. It seems okay. Because if you're allowed to do tax evasion as a member of parliament and then they welcome you back in, what does that say? Does that say tax evasion is a good thing or a bad thing? If you do tax evasion, you'll not lose your job and we'll keep paying you. Oh, what if do you know what, guys? When I'm doing my tax returns and I get they come down on you heavy, and they want their money. Whether it's £1, whether it's £3, they will chase you for that money. Now, I don't say this. I'm not saying this lightly. The fall is inevitable. The fall's inevitable, guys. Now, not because we lack the will to fight, but the momentum now is too great. The warning signs have been ignored for too long. But in acknowledging it, perhaps we can just prepare and to rebuild, perhaps we can just prepare to rebuild, guys. And I think right now that is best case scenario, prepare to rebuild. And of course, for you guys who've been watching me for a while, I think this rebuild's going to be in Antarctica. I do. I think this rebuild's going to be in Antarctica. I don't see anywhere else that it can be realistically. What's coming, even if we don't even talk about crime waves, if we don't even talk about, for example, if every migrant that was coming to the United Kingdom, I'm not blaming migrants for everything, guys. There's a lot of internal policies. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of money going to other countries. There's a lot of people profiteering. And these are, the people who I would say are profiting most I would speculate are, older white men who are ridiculously rich. And they'll be the people who are profiting. Even if, right, just for argument's sake, let's just say that every migrant, and like I say, I'm not just blaming migrants, but it is a big part of it. Everyone that comes to the United Kingdom, let's just say they all work, and they don't commit crime. the sheer number, the sheer numbers, Western civilization's over. Then you add in crime. Then you add in, some statistics that are saying 73% of Somalians don't work, and that's like above the board. It's I don't see the off ramp, guys. I really don't see the off ramp. Right, let me jump, guys. Let me jump over, guys. Right, let me jump up and get some chat, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Right, guys, loads of comments on the chat. So this is a good comment. Morality will get you killed. It does feel like that, guys. It does feel like it. If you live in the United Kingdom right now, we're saturated, guys. We're saturated. Right. In fact, guys, there's quite a lot of comments. Let me jump down. Yeah, I said that actually, Donna. Donna's saying that some migrants have been granted asylum without face-to-face interviews. So it turns out, when Shabina Mahmood said she was gonna sort the migrants. Look, guys, I said this, didn't I? Say this in a video a while ago. I said, you know what I think the government are gonna do? They're just gonna make illegal migration legal. So now we don't have an illegal migration problem because they've made it legal. Hang on a minute. Mirror. HMRC man falsified records to pay himself. HMRC man false. I don't know how you would do that. You can't. You can't pay. I don't. Maybe that was a loan or something. I don't know. Hang on. A tax officer who fraudulently pocketed more than 200 grand to help pay for his wedding debt. Wow, what kind of a wedding did he have? But look, guys, you can't send people to jail for tax fraud if the government are doing it, if the government are doing it blatantly. If the government are doing it blatantly, you can't, if the government are doing this. So if Angela Rayner, right? If Angela Rayner is doing tax fraud by, doing the thing with her house, and look, guys, I don't understand it, to be honest. I'll be honest with you, I don't understand it. But as far as I understand it, she didn't declare her house or something, or didn't she overvalue her house? So she could get, because okay. So Angela Rayner, right? Okay, guys, listen, I may be getting this wrong. So can somebody please fact check me if I'm wrong? Angela Rayner, she overvalued her council house so she could buy another house with her son's money because she sued the NHS. And then she didn't pay council tax or house buyer's tax or something on the 800 grand house that she bought in, where was it, like Brighton or whatever. So anyway, I don't know, but that as far as I'm concerned, as I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, right, okay, so Angela Rayner is trying to do tax evasion or tax fraud or something. So the government are saying she's going to come back. So how can you send people to jail for doing things that the government are doing? Debbie Doobs is saying, I don't think Rayner really ever left. She was sent on a long holiday to try let the grass settle. Let the grass settle. Let the smoke clear. Silly is saying, hello everyone, winter has come and I can now get involved in the talks about the weather. There's some beef in the chat. There's some beef in the chat. Band again is saying irregular, not illegal, they call it now. Labour abuse the English language all the time. Yeah, so another thing what's happened with the with this with the migrant crisis, they're calling these people, they're not saying that they're not using the word illegal, they're using the word irregular now. Right, let me share this video with you. So there's a lot of stuff coming out at the moment, guys. There's a lot of stuff coming out about Somalians at the moment. Now, yeah, so James is saying, watching Ukraine, they have anti-tank drones, spotter drones, anti-soldier drones, all lethal. I'd go to a toy maker, not the military, to get them really cheap. So what they do, they import them. They import all these. They buy the parts basically at as cheap as possible. A lot of these parts, I would say most of the parts actually are bought from China. They get shipped over to the Ukrainians, and then the Ukrainians put these together themselves. So I don't think they'll be able to get them cheaper anywhere else. There's a thing at the moment, the Ukrainians are exporting. I've just passed something where they're exporting drones, but I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that lucrative. Anyway, guys, listen. There's a lot of stuff in the media at the moment about Somalia and Somalians. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to play some videos for you guys. And what is it? That one? This is one. Yeah, I'm going to play some videos for you guys, and I'm going to focus. I'm going to use this about. I'm going to talk about Somalians. I'm going to not voice my opinion. I'm going to ask a question. All right, I'm going to ask a question afterwards. But let me share this video with you.
% of Somali immigrants and their descendants.
So when the Americans are talking about importing Somalians, and there's a big thing in America right now, and then it looks like people don't want Somalians in America. Now, let's just look at these statistics. Now, I don't know if this guy's true or not. I've got no reason to doubt him, but let's just pretend for this live stream, for entertainment purposes only, let's just pretend that he's true, that what he's saying is true.
When people criticize Somali foreigners in Western countries, here are a few things to keep in mind. In Norway, 27% of Somali-born households do not rely mainly on government assistance. In Sweden, 36% of Somali-born adults are either employed or in education. In Denmark, 31% of Somali immigrants and their descendants are not on public benefits.
So this is around 70% of Somalians, what he's claiming, and I'm not claiming this, guys. I'm just repeating what he's saying. Do your own fact checking. And it's not hard to do. So what he's saying here, on average, if you work that out, around 70% of Somalians that come to Europe don't work. 70%. So we are supporting 70% of them.
These are just a couple things to remember during the discussion of whether or not we should let more third worlders into the United States. I hope this helps.
So if we consider that, guys, all right, 70%. If we consider 70%, of Somalians don't work, and then we get headlines like this: 7 Somali illegal migrants jailed for that thing to a 13-year-old girl. It happened at a taxpayer-funded migrant hotel in Bristol. You guys can find this article on the mainstream. You guys can find this article on the mainstream. So when we talk, sorry, I didn't share that with you, did I? And then we see this, guys, 7, you guys can read that yourselves there. 7 Somali illegal immigrants jailed for doing that thing to a 13-year-old girl. Happened in a taxpayer-funded hotel in Bristol. You guys can find that article yourself. It's out on the mainstream. So, those people, these migrant camps, for example, I was there last week. Prison is better than than the migrant camps in France. So there's no incentive for people not to come over to the United Kingdom and maraud. There's absolutely no incentive for this to happen, And statistically, best case scenario, statistically, best case scenario is that that Somalians, for example, and guys, look, I'm not casting judgment. I'm just saying statistically, best case scenario, without taking any crime into consideration, is that Somalians come to the United Kingdom, they come to Europe, they come to the West, and they don't work, 70% of them. So we support 70% of them for the rest of their lives. That's best case scenario. That's without taking any crime into consideration. That's with no crime taken into consideration. What else have we got? The National Security Advisor, Lord Ricketts, says that he believes there's no progress on the critical central issue of territory during the Ukraine peace talks. Now, I'm going to share a little bit of this video with you guys. Just the reason I'm going to share this video with you guys is because it seems like there's always there's always going to be a breakthrough, isn't there? There's always going to be a breakthrough in peace negotiations, and Donald Trump's got a deadline and he wants Putin to sign by this time, and they've done this. And guys, let's just cast back to October 24, was it? Yeah, October 24. I was telling you guys that there's not a chance in Diddley Swill. There's not a chance in Diddley Swill that there's going to be a peace deal. There's not a chance that there's going to be a peace deal, guys, with regards to Putin and Ukraine. Not a chance. And here we are, over a year later, still no peace deal, still no peace. So I just want to share this with you guys for a bit.
Achieved of any significance, do you think?
Well, I think it's very well timed, Jonathan, because as we've seen, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have been ricocheting around between Moscow and then talks with the Ukrainians in Florida. And clearly the Ukrainians are under a lot of pressure from the Americans to make concessions which would bring a deal with Russia perhaps more possible.
Okay, what people don't understand, and look, guys, I think this guy's he's not saying anything massively wrong. He just doesn't understand the situation. You get these people who are intellectuals, they're intellectuals. They've never been on the front line. They've never witnessed this stuff. They don't know what's happening, and they're judging. Their mind is that they're looking at Slavic problems, essentially. They're looking at Eastern European problems with Western European eyes. Those things don't make sense. They don't make sense. They're not going to work. First of all, even if there was a ceasefire tomorrow, and there's not going to be, the Ukrainians wouldn't stop fighting. And there's no way that Zelensky can stop his general. There's no way that Zelensky can make his soldiers stop fighting. That's the reality. How do you stop your military from fighting if they say no? Do you send in your spare military to go and close them down? Your military is your fist. And when those fists start to be thrown, you kind of, what else are you going to stop? How are you going to stop the military from fighting if they refuse? So that's the first problem. It's not going to happen. The second problem, Putin's not going to come to a peace negotiation or a ceasefire agreement when he's taking more ground every day. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. All right? Wars end with a winner and a loser.
That are completely impossible for Ukraine to make. And so I think the European leaders are, as they've done before, gathering around Zelensky to give him support, to make.
Did you hear that, guys? The European leaders. I said this over a year ago. I was telling you guys that the United States, I'm surprised it's taken this long, actually. I thought the United States would have left long ago. I think they're keeping them in the loop because the United States are making a ton of money out of this war.
Clear that it has to be Ukraine that negotiates critical details of an agreement. They can't be settled.
I mean, look, guys, I've been very critical about all of these people. But look at that smile there from Keir Starmer. Can you see that smile? Can you see Starmer's smile there, guys? Look at Starmer's beautiful smile. Like, Starmer must know. Starmer must absolutely know that Zelensky and his regime are embezzling billions. Like, he must know. He's got to know, right? Starmer's got to know that Zelensky is embezzling him. And he's patting him on the shoulder and he's like, yes, we'll give you more money. Do you want another? No. Yes, we will give you more money. Do you want another hotel? Yes, I want very big hotel this time. I want very big hotel I want my old hotel I have built now. It's too small. I am big man. I need big hotel. I need bigger hotel. I need big ski resort. I need my own planet. Oh, yes, we'll keep giving you the money. Sorry, guys. Let me continue with this video.
Between Moscow and Washington, and therefore to make absolutely clear to Trump that Zelensky is not alone. He has a lot of support from the European leaders, as he has had at crucial moments in the last year, after the car crash Oval Office meeting in February, after the Alaska summit. Each time the European leaders have helped bring Trump to see that if there's going to be a deal, it's got to be a lasting deal. It's got to be a stable deal. It's got to be one that Ukraine can accept.
Yeah, you mentioned those Florida talks a moment ago. Do you think much progress is being made?
We don't know, but I suspect there's no progress on the critical central issue, which is territory, which is.
And he's absolutely right. You know, I'm not going to share this whole video, guys. I'm just going to leave it there. So the key issues here with the Ukraine war, can you imagine, all right? Can you imagine if you'd been fighting a war and like your best mates, all your best mates are gone and they died to protect that territory? Are you just going to let them have it? No, because there's this, there's a psychological element to here, and it's crazy. It's crazy. James is saying, I reckon there's a good chance Zelensky will do a runner. Listen, guys, I'll tell you now, it's not going to end well for. Look, guys, I'll tell you now, it's not going to end well for Zelensky. Absolutely not going to end well for Zelensky. He's either going to have to do a runner or something's going to happen and he's no longer going to be with us. But James is saying, I reckon there's a good chance Zelensky will do a runner. Europe without the US can't really help Ukraine without the US. We don't have the money or arms. Russia is getting stronger. It could happen, but it just won't. It could happen, but it just won't. Gone Commando with a fantastic thumbnail picture of the snowman. Guys, do we all love the snowman? I love the snowman. Who was born in like the 80s and remembers that? We're walking in the air. And like the snowman comes in the house and like he goes to the fire and he doesn't want to go near the fire, but then he opens the fridge and he's touching the snowman loves the fridge. I love the snowman, guys. I think we should all pay homage to the snowman, the greatest snowman that's ever lived. And then the next morning when the snowman's melted, oh God. I learned so much from that movie, guys. What's the other one I used to watch as a kid? Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, the 1979 cartoon. That was fantastic. When Aslan comes back, honestly, guys, when Aslan comes back and he cracks the stone table. Sorry, guys, I'm off on a side quest. I'm off on a side mission. All the geopolitics channels are saying Ukrainian front line has collapsed and Putin's in Donbass. So I like a couple of weeks ago. Let me get the warm up actually. Oh yeah, we was looking at Cali on the warm up last night, wasn't we? So a couple of weeks ago, we was talking about Pokrovs. I had an update from one of my friends. Yeah, let me just refresh this. So yeah, okay. So let me share this map with you guys. So the front line in Ukraine, there never really was a front line. Best case was a slow Ukrainian withdrawal. Now, this is the warm-up I go with, right? This is Ukraine. You've got Kiev, you've got Kremenchuk, Dnipro, Zaporizhia, Kherson, Mariupol. Where's Mariupol? Mariupol's like, oh God, yeah, I wasn't told about Mariupol down there. So this is the town that they're talking about here. This town of Pokrovs. Now that is the town of Pokrovs that that's the town of Pokrovs that the government of Ukraine are saying that the town of Pokrovs is still in Ukrainian hands. I mean, I would say there's like 10-15% of Pokrovs that's not in Russian hands. Now, this has just been a slow grinding onslaught. It's been the pincer movement, you know. When they're coming from the north, they're coming from the south. They're not always perfect, you know. They're not always perfect. Here, they've seized more of Pokrovs rather than coming further to the west and further from the east as well. So that town there of Pokrovs, and if you see this in the media, they're calling it a city. It's not, guys. It's literally a town. If this was in Europe, if this was in the UK, it's literally a town. I mean, look, hang on. It's like from there to call it there. It's like 6 kilometers across. It's not a city. You know, it's not a city. It's a town at best. Anyway, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. That is the last fortress. That's the last fortified location in that region. Now, there's literally nothing now, guys. As soon as the Russians consolidate there's nothing. Literally nothing then but open farmland to stop the Russians. Stop the Russians making that, what are we on? 137, call it 140 kilometers. You know, there's nothing there. And why would you? If you was the Russians, why would you bother even coming to a... Like, if you were the Russians, why would you even bother, like, coming to a... Like, why would you even bother? It's like, you know, it's like you're negotiating for something that you're going to get for free. Like, why would you... You know, as far as the... Like, imagine, right? If you were negotiating the price of a car with someone, right? Imagine you're negotiating the price of a car with someone, right? And, you know... hang on. You know, you're trying to negotiate the price of a car with someone, and you know that the price of the car is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper by the day, and you know that eventually they're just going to give it you, right? Why would you come to an agreement? You see where I'm going with that, guys? If you're you're sat there in the car dealership, and the guy behind the counter is saying, "Yeah, this car's, I don't know, 20 grand." And then you're like, yeah, well, I'll come back tomorrow. You go back tomorrow. It's like, it's 19 grand. And you're like, well, you know, I'll come back tomorrow. It's 17 grand, 60. You're not gonna agree on a price because you know he's gonna give it you for free. The quiet van life is saying, I care more about my last toilet than I care about Ukraine. Listen, I totally understand, and that's I know a lot of people do. Now, the reason why I bring this to everybody's forefront is because if you have children, if you are of a certain age, if you're under 30, this is going to drag you into that conflict, and whether you like it or not, you will be dragged into this conflict if you're in the United Kingdom. It will affect you. So, you know, it's going to affect you whether you care or not. You know, I don't care about a lot of stuff, but you know, it's certainly going to affect me. James Brooke is saying, James Brooke says, what's the difference between snowmen and snow women? Snowballs. And we all love the snowman, guys. We all love the snowman. We do. We all love the I think there was a second one, wasn't there? Snowman and his dog or something. I never watched that. Silly is saying at this point, I don't understand why this war is still going on. We all know how it's going to end if the US and Europe are not going to join. Yeah, I would say it's all about money. I would say people are making a ton of money. If people were serious about wanting to stop the Russians, they should have deployed the full, like, you know, if people wanted this war to stop or to minimize loss of life, if NATO or the Europeans would have deployed their military as soon as the 2022 invasion happened, there'd be no Russia now. There'd be absolutely no Russia now, guys. You know, there will be no Russia now. But what's happened is they've given the Russians time to sort their manufacturing capacity out, sort their military out, retrain, rearm, and re-recruit. Re-recruit or recruit, sorry, and recruit. You can't re-recruit, can you? Or maybe you can. So that's what's happened. Now, paradoxically to that, here in Britain, we've been spending a lot of money on defense as well, guys. We've been spending a lot of money in defense. We have spent 5.5 billion. We have spent 5.5 billion on nothing. Yeah, nothing, guys. We have spent 5.5 billion on nothing in the United Kingdom. So what do I mean by that? We were talking about this last night on the live stream. You know, this Ajax project, you know, this Ajax, you know, this armored vehicle, this armored fighting vehicle that the British military have got, the armored fighting vehicle that's supposed to be the best, and it's fantastic. It was done by, I think, General Dynamics built it. It turns out it's that bad. The military are about to bin the project and just give General Dynamics a ton of money. 5.5 billion we just spent, guys, for scrap metal. So, you know, I've been telling you guys this is happening, right? I've been saying to you guys this is happening. You get all these half-baked NATO officials and, you know, Mark Rutte saying, we, the European Union, can outspend Russia. We can outspend them because we have bigger GDP. I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of not the point. He's not talking like, look, guys, I can outspend anyone. I can outspend anyone. It's really easy. You just throw your money away and you've outspent them. I spent my money quicker than you. Yeah, but what did you get in return for it? You know. So when people say about when people talk about, and this is how they trick you. This is how they trick you. This is the scam. This is the scam. And there is some truth in it, but this is the main scam. So I say, look, guys, and listen, guys, when I do these videos, I've worked behind the scenes, I've worked behind the scenes. Gaston, no one strong as Gaston. No one's, what is it? Thick as Gaston. Yeah, Gaston. I will take that, guys. I will take that. I will take Gaston each and every day. Where was I going with this? What was I saying? Somebody mentioned Gaston. At least you didn't say I look like Jafar. Jafar's the worst one. Jafar, he's the bad one. What's his? What was I talking about? Yeah. So this is the scam, guys. This is a scam. I remember when I do these videos, I've worked behind the scenes, and I've been, when there's the guys up front, I've worked behind the scenes, and I know how this game works. When you get the guy standing up there saying, we can do this, we can do that, and then, for example, I'll tell you how this would work. So, for example, let's just say you get like a NATO expert saying, yeah, we can outspend Russia, and then somebody puts their hand up, somebody puts their hand up and says, okay, but you say you can outspend Russia. Can you outproduce Russia? And then the answer that they will give is this. Well, our technology is a lot more sophisticated than the Russians, and you can't compare apples and oranges. We have the very best precision equipment, so we don't need to use the same amount of equipment that the Russians do because ours is more sophisticated and it's more accurate. Which is true. It is true to a certain extent. To a certain extent, you know. For example, if you're a sniper, right? If you're a sniper and you've got 20 rounds of ammunition and there's 100 people running at you, yes, you have precision weapons that's perfectly accurate. You're going to hit that target every time. And you're fighting a horde of villagers with pitchforks and shovels, all right? Best case scenario, you're going to neutralize 20 of those. And then guess what? The rest of them are going to come onto you. So, you know, this whole war in Ukraine, it's a war of numbers, guys. It's a war of numbers, and we don't have the numbers, and we don't have the stomach either. Band again is saying people who can't afford gold and silver are buying copper. We have lasers that can delete nukes in real time, especially Soviet-era rockets. Can you let me know what... Okay, right, okay. Hang on a minute, right, okay, so... okay, right. So, Jam84 is... Look, okay, so... so the war in Ukraine, guys, okay, is going to be won and fought. It's going to be fought and won by private soldiers on the front line with bayonets fixed. That's the reality, all right? Jam is saying Russia has more nukes. Okay, so the analogy I always give to people is like if you have a scrapyard, right, and you have 100 cars. They're missing engines, they're missing wheels, some of them have got no exhaust, the gearboxes have been pilfered, you know, they've been left out in the rain a long time. You can claim that you have 100 cars. And that's true, you have 100 cars. Down the road is a car rental shop, and they have 10 cars. All right? So this guy's got 100 cars, this guy's got 10 cars. Who can drive furthest in their cars? The guy with the scrapyard or the guy with the car rental company? Because they've been maintained and they're up to date and they're modern, you know. So when we talk about Russian nuclear weapons, they're very expensive. You know, they're very expensive to maintain. I know that, and I don't know how much tritium you need for these nuclear weapons, but I know tritium is £40,000 per gram, I think. Or maybe dollars. It's expensive per gram, really expensive per gram. And I know that you need to change the tritium. Well, I know that the tritium half-life is 7 years. So I'm assuming you need to change that tritium in each one of those nuclear weapons every, at least every 7 years. And that's going to be expensive. So, you know, I don't think, the Russian nuclear weapons are that, you know, I don't think they have that many. Kimbo Slice is saying we have lasers that can delete nukes in real time, especially Soviet-era rockets. Okay, so there's two things here we're talking about, guys, okay? Rockets are not nuclear weapons, all right? Rockets are not nuclear weapons. Rockets are rockets, and nuclear weapons are nuclear weapons. A rocket is a delivery system for a nuclear weapon, and they have something called MIRV. What's it stand for? MRIV. No, I think it might be ERV. It's a multi-entry launch re-entry vehicle or something. So the rocket goes up into space, it goes really fast, and then these things, then you get the actual nuclear weapons that come down. At those speeds, yes, a laser could delete them, but no, a laser wouldn't be able to lock onto them. It's just not feasible with radar technology. because you've got to think these things are moving at like, you know, at orbital speed. They come down into the air, you know, they come down, and then you think you've got to have, you know, you've got to have the laser then to point and hold on to that thing, you know, while it's moving really quick. And the reality is, it's virtually impossible to get something, because then you have to have an active radar to measure that. It's virtually impossible to do that. And lasers, they're only really accurate. Sorry, they only really have stopping power at about 2 kilometers. So unless you can get 2 kilometers away from one of these things, it's just they don't work, guys. Lasers don't work. That's the reality. Templar Matt is saying our nukes aren't maintained at all. When we tested our nukes, they fell back into the sea. Can you guys remember that? Can you guys remember that? It was under the Tories. What was his name? So right, guys, picture the scene. All right, you know, picture the scene. You know, you've got the defense secretary stood on a nuclear submarine, and they're showing this. They're rattling. You know, Britain are rattling the saber against Putin. Britain are going to show their nuclear deterrent. And I can't believe they aired it. I think they aired it on the you guys can find it on YouTube. The submarine comes up, and everybody stood there, and all the military generals, and this rocket flies out of the submarine. It gets about 200 meters in the air, and then it just falls back into the sea. It was so embarrassing, guys. It was so embarrassing. But guys, listen, we need to be quite clear. There are, you know, that was the delivery system. So that's the ballistic rocket, not the nuclear weapon. The nuclear weapon is the thing. The nuclear weapon's the thing that gives the mushroom. The rocket is the thing that delivers that mushroom cloud, basically, if that makes sense. Hang on. Sharon Owen is saying a veteran wanted to teach his kids school sport, and they wouldn't allow him because of his right-wing views on illegals. Headlines were right-wing are a danger to children. Listen, Sharon, look, we've got kids, all right? My friend's got kids. It's not working, all right? It's not working. Gen Z are monsters. Gen Z are monsters, guys. Gen Z are going to be absolutely beasts. Gen Z, honestly, guys, Gen Z have already rejected wokeism. They've rejected it. They have absolutely rejected wokeism. The girls at school, they've rejected wokeism. My friend's son, his daughter, they've absolutely rejected wokeism. Everybody I know who has kids under 16, they've absolutely rejected wokeism. You know, they know what it is, you know, and I have a lot of faith in Gen Z, guys. I do. Band again is saying lasers are connected to its satellites and AI computers now. They can fire off hundreds of shots in a second at multiple targets, but at short range because of the power needed. Well, okay, so the physics, guys, the physics doesn't change. I mean, whether they're connected to satellites or, you know, okay, so say that my phone, right, look, guys, this is how lasers work, right? Okay, say that my phone is the thing that you want to destroy. Firing thousands of lasers at it, it's not going to do anything because you need to have that on as a burn. It needs to burn. It needs to burn a hole in it. And any laser, guys, it's not going to be effective. You know, it's not going to be effective out beyond 2 kilometers. I don't care. You know, I don't care what manuals and what defense ministers say and what manufacturers claim that their kit and equipment does. It's not going to be active beyond 2 kilometers. Now, these lasers were designed to take down these things. these really big, really expensive drones. I mean, I think these ones are like, I don't know, they're over 30 million. This is an, I think that's an RQ4 Global Hawk. If that is, it's an RQ4 Global Hawk. So they make sense, right? That makes sense to use a laser to take down that drone. Absolutely makes sense, because then you're using a laser that some people, that the actual laser itself, the laser beam costs maybe $10 or whatever, you know. Now, the problem is drone warfare has evolved so much. You've now got these things that are worth a couple of $100, and they just swarm and overwhelm these laser defenses. So while the laser, yes, the laser costs maybe $10 or whatever it is to fire that laser, the radar, the targeting system, the computer software, the hydraulics, that costs a lot more than $10 to keep that operational. So again, it's a false statistic. With these lasers, guys, it's a false statistic, because those lasers, yes, the energy produced to fire that laser does cost maybe $10 or whatever. But then how much is maintaining those radars? How much is, remember, because you have to have 2 radars. You never, you know, I would speculate there's more than 2 radars on these systems. So it's a false, it's a false narrative, and lasers don't work, guys. Out to, you know, beyond 2 kilometers, lasers are useful, guys. Okay, lasers are absolutely useless. Gone Commando is saying they invented a new gun that knocks them out, Sean, similar to a sentry gun of aliens. Okay, so we've got, okay, yeah, so that's not new. That's called phalanx. And the phalanx is used on ships to stop incoming threats. They also have them around the outside of military bases in Iraq. So if you, I don't know, guys. So if any of you guys have ever been stationed in Iraq, they had these phalanx guns all around the base. And, you know, when the bad guys, the Iraqis or whoever, when they would fire mortars over, the radar would lock onto these mortars, and it would fire these miniguns and destroy the mortar as it was coming in. So, yeah, those things have been around a while. It's the only solution, guys. But again, you know, these are short-range solutions, and the energy it takes to maintain those phalanxes, they're no good. They're no good on the battlefield. They're good for static locations, ships, I guess. You know, so I know ships are not static locations. They're good when you've got high energy, you've got ammunition, and you've got the resources to run a phalanx gun. There's no solution, guys. There really is no solution to drones at the moment. Funny thing, Nostradamus predicted over 500 years ago weapons that fire light at targets. Right, let me jump down. Right, guys. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the crux of this live stream. I know we've gone a little bit off course. I think we've gone a little bit off course. So I don't see any way out of this now, guys. You know, the fall of the West. You know, the fall of the West really is. You know, it really is here. We've got Keir Starmer in the United Kingdom, and it looks like he's taking over as an absolute tyrant. An article from the Telegraph today says Starmer to seize control of the House of Lords after stuffing the chamber with cronies. And these things happen one step at a time, right? These things happen one step at a time. I think everybody thought that, I think people think that the move to tyranny happens quickly. It doesn't. It happens one step at a time. You take those guys down. You take those guys down. You make sure those guys have not got any support. You put those guys in jail. You send anybody, you send anybody to jail who disagrees with you. So now people will not oppose you publicly. And that's what's happening right now, guys. And the fall of Western civilization, I don't think it can be stopped. Now, this is not me saying that anyone's bad. Let's just pretend real quick that everybody's good. Let's just pretend everybody is good and nobody commits crime. Let's just say we don't have crime. Let's just say no, crime is not a thing. We don't have gangs of certain demographics doing things to young girls that, you guys, what I'm talking about. Let's just say we don't have a crime rate of a certain people going stabby, rammy. Let's just say none of that happens, all right? The sheer numbers, Western civilization's over because of the numbers of people from the third world coming to the West, coming into Western culture. They're changing Western culture to be more like the third world. Now, when you add in crime, when you add in people don't want to work, from the statistics we saw earlier, almost 70% of Somalians don't work. When you add all this in, the inevitable's there. And, I don't see a way back from this now, guys. I don't see a backtrack. I don't see an off-ramp without doing things that are absolutely drastic. And I don't think people have the stomach to do things that are drastic. And the longer this is left, the more drastic that action has to be. For example, in 1997, in 1997, was it 6? I think it was 97. In 1997, when Tony Blair opened the doors to mass migration into the United Kingdom, if we could have managed a 1 million-man march to go down to London and say, we don't want this, maybe something would have happened then. If in the 60s, the 70s, there were, something might have happened. Now, as we are right now, what would be needed would be a French-style revolution. And people are too shackled. People are financially shackled too much to have a French-style revolution. Anyway, guys, listen, I'm going to close this down now. I'll be back on later today. Yes, I will. I'll be back on at... what time will I be on? I'll be back on at 8. You guys know what time I'm on, right? I'll be back on at 8. Chris is saying the USA fights wars all over the world, has 800 military bases, releases a policy of world domination, and Europe doesn't blink. Russia fights for some territory on their border. Europe loses their minds. I mean, I could argue with this. Yeah. Okay, so these US okay, so first of all, the bases that America has in other countries, they don't put those bases in those countries without an invite from that country. Doesn't happen, guys. Does not happen. So yes, the US military have, I don't know how many bases they have around the world, but you don't get to put a base in someone else's country without them saying that's okay. And a lot of these bases are for security of that country, i.e., South Korea. I don't know the last time when America rolled into another country and invaded it. I mean, you could argue Iraq, but I was in Iraq, and the situation was bad in Iraq. So I will say that when people say that the war is, I'll meet you halfway, right? I'll meet you halfway, right at the borderlands where I'm gonna meet today. So I'll meet you halfway, Chris. What I will say is, people are saying that Russia's war in Ukraine is illegal. And I will say, like, all wars are illegal. And equally, I will counter that by saying illegal in the eyes of who? Because you could argue that the Americans and the coalition did the same in Iraq 2003. So I'll meet you halfway. I'll meet you halfway with that, Chris. Toxic Goyle is saying the UK will only fall if its men go and fight another battle that isn't on its soil. Fighting for the shilling was the con all the squaddies fell for. Unfortunately, Toxic Goyle, I think that is, I think that's going to happen. You know, I do. I do think that's the way it's going to go. And I'm telling you where I think it's going to go. You know, it's going to be very difficult when the government propaganda machine is in place, and you know, you start to see Western soldiers fighting. You know, there's going to be a group of young men who are going to want to go out there. So you know, I agree, but I agree. I think that's the direction of travel, though. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down now. You guys have been fantastic. I will be back on at 8. If there's breaking news, I'll get that brought to you guys. Listen, guys, another thing before I go, my solution to the migrant crisis would be to start an NGO in France, and that NGO would be the premise of that NGO would be to provide security and monitoring for the people of France, and also to clean those beaches of rubbish, rubber dinghies, outboard motors, and any people smuggling paraphernalia. I can't do this without you guys. So when you guys see my video, when I'm talking about that, can you share that stuff, guys? Because, you know, I can set this camp up. I've done it all over the world. I've done it all over the world for the government, for other governments. You know, I can set this training camp up. I can set this NGO up, but I can't do it on my own, guys. I need to speak to the people who can make that happen. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will close this down now. Have a great morning. I'll speak to you later.